Want to welcome all of you out tonight. Thank you for coming. Going to take a moment and introduce some folks before we get started. Want to begin with our council members. Let me begin by introducing Councilman Jim Brass, Councilwoman Diane Turner, Councilman Brett Hales, and Councilman Dale Cox. We also want to ask our mayor to stand and be recognized. Mayor Camp, maybe you want to welcome the people here, Mayor? Okay, all right. Our city attorney, G.L. Critchfield, council director and administrative officer, Jan Lopez, and her assistant, Patty Johnson. Want to introduce Transjordan director, Mark Hooper. Oh, Hoyer, I'm sorry. I don't have my glasses on, so I look like a P. I apologize, Mark. Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling Director, Pam Roberts. State Senator, Janie Iwamoto. State Senator, Kathleen Reby. And with the Retailers Association, David Davis. Tonight we'll have a discussion on single-use plastic bags. And we're going to begin with a presentation by Mark Hoyer, Executive Director, Transjordan Landfill. Take 3 minutes, Mark.
3 minutes?
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we'll let you guys go longer.
I was going to say, good luck with that.
I think however much time he
after
needs.
this, we'll talk about 3 minutes.
Is this broadcasting it? Okay, I can hear myself now. Good evening. Mark Hoyer, the Executive Director of Transjordan Landfill. We're part of that invisible economy known as waste collection and disposal. Right, you push your tote out to the curb, you go to work, you come home, it's magically empty, and another week goes by and life is good, right? Well, we're the ones that take it at the far end. And City of Murray has been a faithful and very supportive member of the Transjordan organization for many, many years. And wanted to commend the city for that. And I'm happy to be here tonight to talk about plastic bags. Initially, I told Councilwoman Turner that I'd be happy to talk about the litter impacts of bags because that's what I see every day. Plastic bags they have really wonderful aerodynamic properties. The slightest puff of wind takes them up into the air and they fly away. And you can watch on windy days, a truck will unload its waste and many times maybe only 2/3 of that waste hits the ground, the rest hits the air and is gone. Usually it's up the side of our hill or impacts a fence, but a lot of those fly over. And we spend a lot of money every year picking up plastic bags. In fact, last year I did a study of landfills up and down the Wasatch Front, the large municipal landfills, and we included St. George in that because they're friends of ours. But Transjordan, I budget every year $55,000 for temporary labor crews to come out. We hire them from the day labor services like Labor Ready or Strategic Staffing. They come out and they do nothing but walk the fields and the valleys and the hills around the landfill and pick up litter, 85% of which is plastic bags. $55,000 per year, that's what I spend. Other landfills spend a lot too. The Salt Lake County landfill, which is the other landfill here, spends $74,000 a year. North Point Transfer Station, they're not even a landfill. They're a transfer station where waste is transferred inside a building and then brought to a landfill. They're in Linden. They take all the waste from northern Utah County. They spend $35,000 a year. Again, this is just cost for litter pickup. That's it. No other cost built in here. Altogether, if you add our landfills up from Logan down to St. George, we spend $435,000 a year picking up primarily plastic bags. Now, just think about who pays for that. Actually, all the residents that have a trash can pay for that. We have to raise our fees to cover those costs, and those fees are borne by every resident of every one of the cities that participates and throws away the garbage. In addition, there are things we're doing now, and I brought my pictures from Transjordan. This is actually a landfill that we're part owner of in Utah County. This is the Bayview landfill. This is what we call our dinosaur fence. This is a 45-foot tall litter fence. It's constructed solely to stop litter from blowing off of the landfill. And my dream is to electrify this and have it just like the one in Jurassic Park, right? But These fences are very expensive. They're very very large. They're difficult to maintain. We have right now at Transjordan we have $1.5 million put on a capital project that we started this week. Drilling is going on today, but we're actually putting up one of these at the Transjordan landfill right now. It'll completely encompass 3 sides of our landfill. The active area will take about a year to construct this, but we feel that's only reasonable as we have now encroachment by neighbors. And even though we're in the front yard of eBay's server facility out there every week, picking up our litter from their front yard and in their property, we feel we need to do more. So we have to put up a fence like this. So our capital costs are quite expensive. And just for the next 2 years, checking with the same landfills, we have just a little over $2 million in capital cost set aside to spend on litter control, which again is primarily plastic bags. And those are projects at Transjordan, Salt Lake Valley Landfill, Wasatch Integrated, which is Davis County, and finally our Bayview landfill here. We actually just got done spending $350,000 to extend the fence. So that's another average. The average per landfill that I surveyed is $54,000 a year, and the average capital spread between the same landfills is $512,000 a year. So each one of us, and I have, I believe, 9 landfills surveyed here, each one of us is spending on average $550,000 a year to control plastic bags, predominantly plastic bags. There's plastic films that fly, you know, the saran wraps. There's other versions of plastic out there, things out of your Amazon boxes, little air pillows, styrofoam beads, those fly too. But primarily it's the plastic bags because they fill with wind and off they go. So there's a real cost that's being borne. And again, this is not some national, you know, pull numbers off of Google costs. These are happening right here on the Wasatch Front because I made each and every phone call and email myself. Do we have more pictures of that dinosaur fence? Here's the same fence. This is at Bayview. And you can see its effectiveness on a windy day. Bayview is down on the west side of Utah Lake, down near Alberta. The city of Murray's waste will go there someday. We bought a share in that landfill because Transjordan is filling up. We'll be full in about 12 to 15 years, so we need to take the next steps to find out where next to bring the waste. And so we will be transporting waste down to this facility. So this is where your waste will end up going someday. Isn't that nice to know? But we have a good fence in place, but that shows you how effective they are. Is there another slide I have here, Jen? There's a human scale. You can see Leisha, our environmental coordinator, standing up against one of the poles there. And then the lower picture there is a slide from a MRF, a materials recovery facility. MRFs struggle with plastic bags like crazy because they come in with the recycling, and of course they're not recyclable. So they have to dig them out of all their machines. And it's crazy. I was in a MRF in Rhode Island 2 months ago, and to get these bags out of the machines, they actually have to suspend the employees in nylon harnesses with a back mount and kind of fly them from the ceiling using a crane. And they lower them into the tops of these machines, and they have these razor knives. They have to cut them out by hand for hours. And we're talking how scary would it be if the rope broke and the machine started at the same time. Anyway, so real litter impacts. I want to see a few other things, though. Single-use plastic bags have really emerged as an icon of waste in our country. And they're kind of indicative of our throwaway society. We place no value on these things, and they're everywhere. They're not recyclable in Utah. End of story. Ask any company, they're not recyclable. We did a survey. You know, if you walk into Smith's or into Home Depot or into Winco Foods, they have a receptacle right in the front lobby where you get your shopping cart and say, put your plastic bags here. 3/4 of the retailers we contacted and talked to, and we said we wouldn't use names, but they take them out back and throw them in their dumpster. So, because there's no recycling market for them. Now that means they're being responsibly taken care of. They're not getting hopefully into the environment, right? They're bagging those and taking care of those in an environmentally responsible fashion as best they can, but they're not being recycled. We know the bags photodegrade and disintegrate into smaller and smaller particles, and they litter the urban landscape. We had several loads brought in from the Jordan River Commission last year where they were cleaning out the Jordan River, And several large roll-off containers came into the landfill over a couple of days. Remarkable how much plastic came out of the Jordan River. I mean, it's just phenomenal. Tons and tons. The cost of these things is actually passed on to our communities, to us, in the form of higher prices in all ways. And I think I've talked about that. The thing that really gets me is that they are easily preventable sources of pollution. We can easily prevent that problem, but somehow we choose not to. I want to answer a few objections that I've heard. Plastic bags only represent 0.32% of the production of the United States plastics industry. So plastics representatives will get up to the legislature and talk about if we ban these things, what a damage it will be to their industry. The fact is, it's 1/3 of 1% of the entire national plastics output is in these plastic bags, so very, very small percent. People were worried about bacteria. If we asked people to reuse bags in the grocery store, what about the bacteria? Turns out that Consumer Reports did an amazingly effective and exhaustive study and found no credence whatsoever and debunked that myth. People found out, they complained, said, what about low-income people? They can't afford reusable shopping bags. And turns out that that's almost a prejudicial statement. It implies that lower-income people don't care about the environment. That's not true. And also, it turns out that the stores already are pricing the cost of these bags into their products. You buy a can off the shelf, it's a cent or two higher to cover the cost of the bag. Stores have to buy these bags, right? That's already being passed along to you. And they found, studies have shown that in communities that have put a small fee in or outlawed the plastic bags, they have found that actually the consumers save anywhere from $18 to $30 a piece per year by lower food costs. Finally, 1 trillion single-use disposable bags are used in the world every year, with 1 billion a year being used right here in Utah. The average American family takes home almost 1,500 plastic shopping bags a year. That's about, what, 4, 5, almost 5 a day? Less than 5% are recycled. And the only recyclable outlet for these plastic bags are for the people that make these composite plastic furnishings like Trex decking or these benches, and that's the only use for these bags. One other thing I wanted to say is that I'm proud to be associated with the city of Murray because Murray seems to be a little more forward-thinking when it comes to issues of the environment. Right now at Transjordan Landfill, we have a landfill gas to energy plant. We have over 100 gas wells. We pull all of our landfill gas, our methane, out of the ground before it gets into the environment. And we run it to our energy plant, and there it's combusted by 3 large generator engines, and we create electricity. Or should I say Murray City creates the electricity. Murray City was the original sponsor of that project. They are putting the electrons on the grid every day from Transjordan's energy project to the tune of about 5 megawatts, which is around 4,000 homes, 24/7. Murray also sponsors the same project at the Salt Lake Valley landfill, the gas energy project there. And if you talk to Murray Power, they love landfill gas projects because they're green. If this gas isn't captured, it's escaping to the environment, and it's a huge greenhouse gas, as we know, yet it has energy value. But Murray, years and years ago, had the thinking and came forward and asked the 2 landfills if they could sponsor these projects and get them off the ground. So without Murray, these projects wouldn't exist today. And to me, that demonstrates some environmental forward thinking and maybe a little bit of visionary leadership. And so I think today what we're seeing is maybe another step in that same direction. So I want to commend the city leaders for that. And with that, I'll finish my talk.
Mark, we'll now move on to the Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling Director, Pam Roberts.
All right, thanks for having me tonight. It's good to see such a good turnout tonight. For those of you that were fortunate enough, I was able to hand out the BYOB bag to promote reusable use of grocery bags or whatever you need to put into your bag so you don't have to use a plastic. Gives you an alternative so you have a choice. Mark did a great job reviewing the impact of the plastic bags. And so for me, and my team. And so you'll know we expend about $200,000 a year on education for our residents, for the communities, and then also the swag and then the educational materials to get out there and the events that we sponsor to help promote recycling right. And I have to commend Mark and his team because he worked with there's only two recycling vendors here in Utah, well, in the valley, excuse me, that recycling is delivered to. And those two vendors have experienced increased costs. And so one of the big things is the plastic bags. So if we could move on to the next slide. As you can see, we have a campaign on our trucks. There's a smiley face by the reusable bag and a frowny face by the plastic. There's a reason for that. So in talking about the increased costs that are associated for recycling, and those of us that have to pay and we experience that increased cost, including municipal representatives, administrative staff that are trying to manage these increased costs, and then talk to the residents about it. Everybody has been up in arms. And the reason being is that there used to be a revenue source for delivering recycling to the vendors because they were making quite a bit of profit off of selling them on the commodities market. And to be honest with you, Mark, hit a good point, is plastic bags really aren't recyclable and they do clog up the machines. When the revenues were high and the vendors were getting such a large dollar, they didn't mind expending that higher cost to literally have the workers, be suspended and go in and cut those bags out. It was just, okay, we can recoup that cost and still make a profit. And at our level, the district, we were making about $400,000 a year in revenue to help offset the costs of recycling. It never paid for itself, and I think that was the misnomer that we all had as consumers. It never has paid for itself. Neither does garbage collection. We do the best we can with the fees that we charge, okay? So there's two things to look at, two factors. I tried to break this out as simple as I could because I figure if I can understand it, anybody can understand it. I am the litmus test for simplicity. So the two factors are contamination, all right? If there is garbage in the recycling, it's going to cause problems and raise costs. And what that means is that the vendors are sorting through the materials as they come to them. They literally, our truck will drop it off, dump it at the facility, and there's a big pile of recycling. They take a bucket and a loader and they'll scoop it up, put it on a conveyor belt. It goes up, literally will run through a conveyor belt, and you have pickers on each side, people picking off the materials. And so one of the things that they're pulling off at a rapid pace are the plastic bags, okay? They're pulling off green waste, they're pulling off garbage, anything that's dirty, they get it out. The processors have had to slow down their lines to try to capture the most valuable commodities that they can. Metals received a high value at one time. Just so you know, the commodity markets are so volatile right now that has changed, and it can change overnight. And so we're just trying to keep an eye on it, help our residents. We try to do the best we can to manage those increased costs and the volatility. The other factor, and so you'll know, single stream collection is what we have, the majority here in the valley. That means that we're putting all recycling into one can. We don't sort it at the source unless you're pulling out the glass. You don't want glass in your recycling container. It needs to be separate. That's a contaminant, and that will cause problems as you can imagine, people are picking off at the line and the hazards, right? So the other thing is the recycling commodities market. I mentioned that. It's changing. It has changed dramatically. Where we had a revenue source, now we've had to budget for 2019. Okay, remember, revenue back in 15. I mean, Councilmember Brass has been on our board for a while. Probably remembers those days. Oh, that's nice. And then all of a sudden it goes to $984,000 expense. You see the swing, right? It's shocking. And it has really ticked off many of us that are trying to manage it and blaming the recycling vendors. They're just people trying to manage their costs. They need to pass it on in order to keep going. So that's what's happening when you hear that cities are going out to negotiate, et cetera, et cetera. And hi, come. Janie's here. Sorry, come on in. Senator Iwamoto. I work in garbage, so I'm very informal. So. Yeah, welcome. So going on to the next slide, if we may. And the increased cost, as I mentioned, China was one of the biggest buyers of the recycling materials from the States. And in all honesty, I think that vendors here that were selling the materials put all their eggs in one basket. Some of the local markets kind of just said, well, China's supporting everything. Let's just send it overseas. But China got so overwhelmed with the thin plastics, including plastic bags. And if you have a chance, you can go on to CBS Sunday morning and watch a piece on drowning in a sea of plastic. And it's eye-opening. It's shocking to see what happened over in China and why they said, green fence up. We're not taking your stuff unless it's 90% pure. And to be honest with you, people found a way around that. The people at the inspection here in the States and the inspections over in China basically said, hey, we'll just let some of that through. So then the second phase of the restrictions came, and that was the Green Sword. I don't know if anybody's heard of the Green Sword. I know Councilmember Brass has. But it's a whirlwind of education, and it's been a rapid pace. It's been since 2017 we've started to see this drastic change. So with that, we launched campaigns for the BYOB, which some of you received, and I think I promised this one to someone back there. Was that you? Make sure I get it to you. And then the price per ton, we used to pay maybe 10 at the max. We used to receive 40 per ton. Then it went to 10 to hurry and try to negotiate so we didn't have to end up paying right away. And the vendors were kind enough to allow that. Because they still had a little bit of a profit. And these are for-profit companies that we understand. Privates are function differently than government. It takes all of us together. So there's my spiel. But throughout the U.S., what we started seeing is the prices for having the commodities delivered to the facilities and the price per ton for processing going up. And it's reached as high as $100 a ton, depending on what's in it. So there's a flat fee to start. Vendors will charge anywhere from $95 to $100, or even a little bit higher, as a base fee. How you reduce that is by what is being delivered to their facility. And that's where we come in as people, boots on the ground, watching and being very careful about what we put into our recycling can. For most of Murray, it's a green can. For those that are in the district, it's blue. Just know which color you're putting what into, and think about it twice. I beg you. So you'll know the district basically, and other municipalities have had to pay as high as $67 a ton to have recycling processed. For us, the landfill fees are right around $32.85 per ton. I understand that members of Transjordan pay a little less, so I think for members of Transjordan, that's been a bigger shock for others than maybe for us. It is still quite high, double. But our board coming into 2019 said we want to fund recycling. We need to keep it going. And a big piece of that, if you'll move on to the next one, we surveyed our residents to find out, first education. We were out there pushing education in early 2018, late 17. And then the campaigns for BYOB, bring your own bag, get rid of the plastics. We started that right away. And so we surveyed because our board needed to know. They're all elected officials from the 13 municipalities within the district. And so we surveyed district-wide, and we had 6,000 respondents. This was a sample. It was online. Normally, for our customer satisfaction survey that we do annually, we get right around 3,000. This was double. People wanted to weigh in. And I have to say that personally I was happy to see that almost 80% supported continuing on with weekly recycling. And then there was another We got a low percentage that do not recycle. And then there was over 70% that said that they would support a fee increase. And we broke out the fee increase based on what we knew in 18, and things have changed again. So we'll be doing a survey. The actual cost is probably going to be a little higher than $984,000, and I'm keeping an eye on the markets, and I'm praying it's not going to be much more. We've budgeted that, but in our operational budget, personnel budget, we usually have under expense. So we're hoping not to have any sort of budget adjustment. I know you as council and mayor certainly understand what that means, and senator. So these are examples of what municipalities around the valley and also Ogden City have done. So Ogden City did suspend recycling efforts for a very short time while they were negotiating price per ton with their vendor. They came to agreement. It started back up. That was good to see. And then West Valley City, who happens to have the highest contamination rate, one of them in the valley, gave residents an opt-out option to try to help clean up the recycling going to the vendors to lower their cost, and then also to give people an option. They reduced their fee by $250 a month for doing that. Residents still pay, I think it was somewhere around $13.50 otherwise. And then moving on to the next one. Around Utah, there's lots of things happening, which is what brings up, I think, this ordinance and the idea of Murray City Council and the mayor looking at, what can we do? What can you do? Every effort from my part of it, of collection and taking forward processing, is greatly appreciated. I would love to see all the plastic bags out of there and help control costs or bring them down. That gives you an idea. And then if you'll move on to the next one, this is nationwide, any bag legislation, and it's colored with bans, de facto statewide ban. You can see California has both bans on and labeling recycling or reuse programs. Hawaii has a ban for plastics. It's big. It's happening nationwide because everybody's feeling this. It's not just a Utah issue. Okay. And with that, I'll wrap up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate Pam Roberts for the Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling Facility. We'll now have our City Councilwoman Diane Turner from Murray City Council District 4 come to the podium and address the audience. You want to do it up there, Diane, or if you're more comfortable sitting here, whichever works.
Yeah, I can just do it from here, but Shannon, would you like to address? Oh, yeah. And I'll take it. I'll just, should I stand over there? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Hold those signs for you.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm late. I had a bit of a fall yesterday. And so after all my legislative work, I was at the hospital. But this, Herm Olson just brought my boards back. He delivered them, hand delivered them. But this, I just wanted to show you, this is at the Salt Lake County. This is at Salt Lake County. This is just at the ocean. And then I had gone, when I first brought the bill, gosh, it was how long ago? And I want to say Dave Davis is here with the retailers, and this bill, I had cities and, UAC, the counties, and everyone come, and we put a statewide bill together with a 10% fee. And I thought it would be fun, but actually it was a lot of work on everybody's part. And I just thought, I saw it in San Francisco, the first bag bill they did, and I was on a panel with them for this supervisor for some other reason, and we talked about the bill, and so I brought this bill, and then it passed through committee, but then I got pneumonia, but I think we're doing pretty good, but then it's just been a struggle, and like we've had these two other bills come last year and this year on the ban to not allow any municipalities from bringing these kind of bills at all, and that's supported by petroleum companies. But one thing is, I know with the retailers and that, we worked on this bill, and ours was kind of, I researched every bill throughout the state. My house is filled with retail bag stuff. And And so we researched everything on, and there's so many different ones, but the fees seem to change behaviors, and that's why it worked. And we looked at 15 cents, and then 5 cents didn't change behaviors, but 10 cents did, and it's, so that's kind of how, and we didn't, like most places, ban plastic and charge for paper. And it was Midville Mayor Sagini who taught me, she sent me an article and said, Janie, those paper bags are bad too. And it had that. So and then the retailers said we want something statewide so it's not different in every municipality, and we don't want to ban anything. And anyway, it worked into this consensus bill at that time. And then this year I held back because really it's the municipalities that I think should talk. And I got to know Mark very well, and he had his help. And of course, because I was on Salt Lake County Council, I knew the great work of Pam Roberts and them. And so anyway, I went up, when I first did this bill, I went to Rocky Mountain Recycling, and I at that time could climb everything, and went into all the different stages of the climbing up and to see what they actually did. And these bags got tangled into all these machines, and they'd have to stop their machines every day to get these plastics out. And at different places, in the process, it wasn't just one place, it was different. And then at the end, I was just shocked. There was like 9 to 12 people here, and they're pulling all the plastic bags out, because otherwise these will just go to the landfill. And it's been a learning process, because I have neighbors, and it doesn't matter what party you are, but my neighbors are so for this, and they're all Republican. And they were just like, Janie, that bill, we've got to do something about it. And so it didn't matter, because most people thought, oh, is this a Democrat environmental bill? But this has been, I've had more every single year emails on this issue than any other issue, even fireworks, and I worked on fireworks, and this is more than that. So it's just, I keep getting that, but I really do believe the locals should decide. And so they're still really excited there in Logan, and they've had a lot of support. And I still have the bill ready, but I do too want the municipality to decide what's best for them. So this was a fact sheet that I had last year that was up to date, and maybe you've had it, and then these are just some of the pictures and stuff, and I thought I could pass them out. And there's some extra the public wants it too, but just talking about the problem in Utah and nationwide and worldwide. And these bills are not, they're not just, like you said, unique to here. It's all over the world. And I always thought it was strange that, like, we get most of our plastic bags from Asia, and then they all have bills to ban them where they live. It's just so crazy that we're taking it all. And now with China rejecting all that, then it's just, but I think people are, it's just the fee, from my view, is people are starting to do it. I've heard other stores that are doing it, like my daughter works at a store, and they're gonna charge a fee. And like, they're trying to do the right thing, but I've noticed that it takes a little extra nudge to get people to change. And I'm not perfect. I always say to people, I'm not perfect at all, but when I go to Hawaii to visit my in-laws, or when I'm in California or wherever they have them, I just change overnight. And that's just like, cell phones or anything. If it's not banned and you go someplace else, you comply with it. So anyway, I just wish you luck on your endeavors and support it. And I really, respect you for all this work that you're doing on it and listening to the public. So thank you.
Senator Iwamoto. Thank you. Okay. Diane?
Okay, let's see. Is this on?
It's on. Great. Got hold of Ray up there.
Okay. Yes. Let's see, Murray City Council single-use plastic bag discussion, and this is a discussion. This is the first part of our looking at plastic bag bans, or perhaps charging. That hasn't been decided at this point either. So that's why we decided, the first part is we need to get input from our citizens and find out the impact, what they think about it, and then we'll continue on with our research. I started being interested in this about 5 years ago. Charles, my husband, and I vacationed in Italy, and when we went to the grocery store, they asked us, do you want a bag? And if so, that'll cost you the equivalent of 25 cents. And we were surprised by that. We had no clue that they charged, and thought, well, that's a great idea. So we got our bag, one bag, and then kind of looked around and saw there were not plastic bags all over the place that were littering the parking lots and, the trees and stuff, and that was really pleasant. So when we got back, I went to our attorney, at that time was Frank Nakamura, and he said he would let me know and see what we can do some research, and we needed to do our due diligence. And then Frank retired, so now GL inherited it, and so anyway, the process will continue. We'll do more research and make sure this is what is the best for Murray. Murray City has an obligation to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of residents and visitors. The city seeks to promote policies which will preserve and conserve natural resources and promote a cleaner, healthier environment. So as you've already heard this stuff. Plastic bags remain in the environment for hundreds of years. They litter our streams, lakes, landscapes, and highways. They adversely impact wildlife and water quality, clog storm drains, and whirl around landfills. And we have also learned that disposable single-use plastic bags negatively impact recycling equipment, are a source of recycling contamination, and are seldom recycled. They're made of non-renewable resources and commonly petroleum and natural gas. So, the Murray City Council is considering an ordinance to prohibit distribution of single-use plastic bags. We figured that we would have to just completely ban them, but what we're hoping, and what I had always intended, was that we would be able to charge a fee or a charge or something like that. We're doing research on that to find out if we can really do that or if we have to ban it. So, let's see, ordinance details, and I know there is a lot of concern about what will be prohibited. What, at this point, approved carry-out bags. Nothing in the ordinance precludes a retail store from making reusable bags available for sale to customers or from customers using their own reusable bags. If a retail establishment provides a checkout bag to customers, it must be reusable, recyclable paper bag, or compostable. So let's look at the definitions. A reusable bag means at least 3.0 milliliters, anyway, with a capacity of 125 or more uses. And on your seat, you have a bag such as this that is also able to carry 22 or more pounds over a distance of 175 feet, capable of being washed so as to clean and disinfect multiple times. And that really puts more responsibility on the citizens, and we realize that, but I think Murray citizens are up to it. Recyclable paper bag means 100% recyclable including the handles, contains at least 40% post-consumer recycled content, displays the words recyclable and made from 40% post-consumer recycled content in a visible manner. A compostable plastic bag means it conforms to the current ASTM D6400 standard. It's certified and labeled as above standard, capable of undergoing biological decomposition, consistent with known compostable materials. A single-use checkout bag does not include pharmacist bag for prescription drugs, newspaper bags, door hanger bags, laundry dry cleaning bags, and bags sold in packages. Single-use checkout bag does not include packages containing multiple bags intended for food storage, garbage, pet waste, or yard waste. Bags used by consumers inside retail establishments to package bulk items such as produce, nuts, grains, candy, or small hardware items to take to the point of sale or checkout area. It also does not include bags that wrap frozen foods or meat, fish, or poultry. Bags that wrap flowers, potted plants, or items with moisture. Penalty for non-compliance at this point, like I said, what we've got is, in the process, and may change depending on further research and input from the community. The first offense is a written warning. The second offense is infraction and up to a $750 fine. The retailers that we contacted up to this point indicated that they would follow the ordinance, and as has already been indicated, that Smith's said they are planning, which is Kroger Foods, planning to eliminate plastic bags by 2025 anyway, and they would just move that date up. Also, it has not been determined for sure when the ordinance would go into effect. We wouldn't just, do the ordinance and then say tomorrow we expect you to comply with this. There would be some time, 6 months, right around that, depending on the input we receive. So, at this point, do we have questions and?
Be part of citizen comments.
Yeah, and citizen comments. I think we're allowing 3 minutes because we're going to try to get out of here about 8 o'clock because we know your time is valuable. And
Going to have one more presenter.
oh, okay, sure. Thank you.
David Davis with the Retailers Association.
Thank you, council members. Dave Davis. I am the president of the Utah Retail Merchants Association, and I represent hundreds of retail companies across the state and thousands of retail locations. So thank you for giving me just a minute to share a couple of thoughts from a retail perspective. I think we can all agree, I've sat through many of these presentations before. I think we can all agree that there's an issue here. And it seems like a lot of time is spent on detailing exactly what the issue is. I think where it gets a bit challenging is, okay, what do we do now? What can we do to that will make a difference? And so I wanted to just speak from a retailer's perspective what this really means for retailers. Council Member Turner has, in her proposal, one of the things that Murray City is looking at is a total ban of plastic bags. That would mean as a practical, well, let me set the table by saying, I think that we all ought to be moving towards how do we reduce single-use bags, whether they be paper, whether they be plastic, how do we reduce single-use bags? Typically when a city bans plastic, what it inevitably does is it pushes consumers into paper bags. And as Senator Iwamoto said, and we've spent a lot of time together on this issue, paper bags are not without their problems as well. When you look at the carbon footprint of a paper bag, it's substantially larger than a plastic bag. And so it pushes them into those paper bags. What does that mean for your local retailer? Well, typically, you're going to be moving from, it's going to be roughly a 500% increase in the cost of product from plastic to paper. Now, keep in mind, as if Murray City chooses to move forward with this, this will impact only businesses resident in Murray City. This is why we have worked with Senator Iwamoto to see if we can find a state solution for this. This poses a real problem for retailers. When you have a retailer that is operating in multiple jurisdictions, the Macy's grocery store is a good example. They have a store in Murray, but they have stores scattered throughout the state. They have to operationally do things different in one store. The other thing that you ought to consider, I think, as a council and as a city government is Murray City is not insulated from other cities around it. And when you look at the cities that have done this, Park City and Moab in particular, they're fairly closed communities. That is, if you don't buy something in Park City, you got to drive a ways to get out to Kimball Junction, where some of these restrictions wouldn't apply. With Murray City, you have Midvale, and you have Taylorsville, and you have Holiday, and you have many Mill Creek that are surrounding cities where consumers may make the decision, look, I'm just going to move over to the next city where where I don't have to pay for my bags. Because as a practical matter, retailers will likely say, look, we cannot bear a 500% increase in our bag costs. We're going to have to start charging. And if you think somebody will not move a mile or two down the road for 15, 20, 30, 50 cents, just think about gas. People drive for miles to save 5 cents, 10 cents on a gallon of gas. And so I would ask for you to consider what we refer to as the fugitive sales problem. These sales that would move the Walmart that's on 9th East and about 4600 South, that's not in the city. The Smith's that's on 45th South and 9th East, it's on the wrong side of the street and is not in the city. And consumers have many, many options. You have the whole Fort Union retail complex that would be outside of the city. And so I think that you have to keep in mind that issue. And will a ban truly make a difference? I thought Mark did a great job, and Pam, in detailing exactly what the problem is. If Murray City does this on their own, is it going to make a difference? I think that you have to go through that mental exercise of saying you have every other city that's surrounding it that still is permitting these things, will it truly make a difference? And Senator Iwamoto referred to the ban bill. That is a bill that would preempt cities. It's been considered a couple of years up at the legislature that would ban cities from making any determinations on plastic packaging, straws, and things like that. And that has been considered for multiple years and may, as more cities go, continue to get traction. I don't want to just stand up here and say, here are all the problems. I think that the question is, what are some of the solutions? Senator Iwamoto has a solution. And in my mind, it's a reasonable solution. It creates a state standard where all retailers are on a level playing field, and it sort of solves this fugitive sales problem. Logan backed off of its plastic ban specifically because of this fugitive sales problem. They knew that people could go to North Logan, they could go to Providence, and that they were worried about these sales leaving the city of Logan. So I think that Senator Iwamoto has come up with a good solution. And all of you council members have significant pull with the Utah League of Cities and Towns. I would ask you to reach out to them and ask them to engage even more on this statewide solution. I think that poses the best solution, and it would actually do something to solve Transjordan's problem. It would, because we would be talking about something across the entire state. I think that there are education programs. I know that there have been many things that have been done. I think that there can be a better partnership with retailers. Honestly, the way that I found out about this was I had one of my members call me. We would love to engage more proactively with the city to see if there are things that we can do from a retail community to help with this. But it's hard when we're not getting full communication about what's going on, and so we would like to be part of that solution. There are programs with credits that some retailers are doing if people will bring in a recyclable bag. It's kind of the reverse of a fee, where you're given a 5 cent or a 10 cent credit if you'll bring in your reusable bag. I think that citizens and residents, typically if you ask them, are you in favor of banning plastic bags? Most of them will probably say, yeah, I'm okay with that. When you ask them the full question, which is, are you willing to pay more for paper bags? Are you willing to pay more for your groceries if we do away with plastic bags? All of a sudden, the support softens just a bit when you're talking about adding those additional fees. The other thing that you could consider is if you chose to look at a ordinance and do this sort of here as an island, one of the things that we've seen done in other states is sometimes cities will say, we'll pass this ordinance, but it will not take effect until there are a certain number of communities that also pass a similar ordinance, so that you get some critical mass in moving forward. I'll just close by saying, as retailers, we want to be part of the solution. We don't love giving away product for free, because that's what we're doing with paper and plastic bags right now. We think that a move to reusable bags would be positive for the consumer, it'd be positive for the environment, it would be positive for the city, and it would be positive for the retailers as well. That being said, as is always the case, the devil is always in the details. How do we get from point A to point B and not impose an undue burden without a significant benefit on the other side on local businesses. Thank you again for giving me a moment.
Thank you, David. We're going to conclude the speaker presentation portion of our meeting. Before I move on, I was reminded by Councilman Cox that we have Boy Scouts here tonight. So if you gentlemen will just stand and we can acknowledge you. I don't know that we can recognize you back there in the hallway, but it's good to have Scouts come out. We appreciate the work that their Scout leaders do. Thank you. Okay. With that, we'll move on to citizen comments. Just a few words regarding our citizen comment portion. We'll allow you 3 minutes, and what's that? Oh, sorry. I really don't need it, but I think we need to record the yeah. So we'll allow you 3 minutes, and you can know when your time is up. Jan will let you know how many seconds you have left. 30 second mark. With that, if you'll give your name and address before you speak, that would be important as well. So with that, we will begin our citizen comment portion.
Maybe just line up on that side of the room so we'll know who wants to speak.
Okay, if you get it started.
My name's Scott Glauser. My house is at 6163 South 13th East.
Get closer to the mic, that'd help us, Scott.
Do you want me to say that again? My name is Scott Glauser, and I'm at 6163 South 13th East.
Thank you. We need that for the record for our minutes.
I just want to say, I want to tell you, the Murray City Police are the nicest in the entire country.
Somebody didn't write a ticket.
Not that I'm arrested that often, but when I am, they're really nice to me. I have lived where plastic bags are totally banned, and it is terrible. Here's what happens. You're coming home from work. I'll just stop into the grocery store and pick up a few items. You go buy a whole bunch of stuff. You show up. Where's the bags? You can't have one. Okay. You put all the stuff from one cart into the other cart. You go out to your car. You throw everything in the back seat. It rolls all around all over the place. It gets destroyed. You can't find it. What's that smell? You look under the passenger seat. There's that fish I bought 2 months ago. Paper bags. If you buy groceries and put them in a paper bag, you have a 50-50 chance of making it to your car without everything going on the ground. Because they're not strong, and anything that's frozen causes them to sweat, and it goes right out the bottom. Believe me, I've done it. So, banning plastic bags is a big mistake. It's not my fault if your machine gets clogged up with plastic bags. I don't care. It costs you $50,000 a year to deal with plastic bags. So what? How many people live in Murray? Oh, 50,000. That's $1 a year. How much does it cost me when I go to the store? I don't throw stuff in the back seat of my car anymore. Do you want a bag? Yeah. How much are they? They're $5. How many do I need? You need 10. Okay, that's $50 for one trip to the store. I pay $1 a year for the city to deal with plastic bags? So what? Who cares? I'll give you $5. I buy one of these stupid bags and it costs me that much money. I got 50 of these. Do you think I go buy these at the store because I forgot to take my bag with me and then I go home and put them on my pile? No, I throw them away. It's costing me way more to not have plastic bags. I love plastic bags. Plastic bags are great. How much does this take? How much space does this take in the landfill? If you squash all the air out of it, there it is right there. There's a plastic bag with all the air squished out of it. It's nothing. You throw away one sofa, it's the same as 50,000 plastic bags. Let's ban sofas.
Thank you. We're going to, one thing I forgot to mention is if you want to ask if you want to ask questions, do it during your citizen comment period. So if you have a question, you'll want to get in line and ask them at the podium. All right, please proceed.
So I'll try to be quick so everybody can talk. But Mark Timothy, 1466 Vintree Circle, Murray, Utah. My comment is, whether you take either position, I find it odd that we spent an hour and a half hearing from most everybody that opposes plastic bags, and one person that's neutral, just representing businesses, which is good, and I kind of support his tactic. Whether I'm against plastic bags or in favor, I really don't want to argue that here, but I would like to suggest to the council, let's do things more democratic, and let's try to bring in opposition and give them an equal amount of time. If we go to a court, they give both sides. The judge doesn't say, let's just hear mainly from the one side. And if we agree that our position is valid, whichever side you take, wouldn't you want to hear from each side? And I just watched a program last week about the railroad coming together. In San Francisco, as late as 1906 or something, Chinese were not allowed to have citizenship. We fought a civil war, we do all kinds of laws, and those people still thought these Chinese will come in here and they'll dominate our society. And they look different, they act different, they believe in different gods. It seems like I agree with the thought, we all agree plastic bags making a mess and destroying our environment are not good. I, from a business side, would suggest if there's money in it, somebody will invent a machine, as we've done throughout history, whether it's figuring out how to deal with horses in New York City and inventing an automobiles, or whether it's coming up with something to pull plastic bags or shred them, or I'm not even suggesting eliminate them. You could eliminate them. But I agree with the thought, if they are eliminated and it makes my life 10 times easier, I will drive a mile and still use them all. And so it doesn't change what everybody's against. It just makes life different. So thanks.
Thank you. Well, Councilman Cutler, how are you?
I'm well. Bruce Cutler, 6051 Mohican Circle. As I heard about this, I contacted Dale. We were down in Los Angeles this past summer, and I had to go get some drugs. My wife took a fall, and I had to go get some drugs for her over at the store, and I had to pay $0.25 for a bag. And I thought, well, okay, fine, but provide me some alternatives, particularly for visitors from out of town. I had no other way to get it back to the hotel other than to pay the $0.25 to get the bag. And then I had this big bag, and what did I do with it? I threw it away because I had to go back home. So what I'd like to say is this. One of the largest retailers in this city is Costco. I have never taken one plastic bag out of Costco. Why? Because they provide an alternative. Do you want a box? And sometimes I'll say yes, sometimes I'll say no. Now, granted, I buy bigger items there. But what I'd like to propose is I think Dave Davis's comment there provided an incentive that if I go to the store and I take my reusable bags, then I get a 10% discount or a 5% or even 2% or even 50 cents. Give me a motivation to take those bags. We'll have to change the behavior. I served a mission in South America, and when they go to the store, they didn't have bags back then. Everyone would take their own bags. That's the pattern of what they did. And if we want to change behavior, we need to create a motivation to say, if you take your bags, whether plastic or anything else, if you make it reusable, you get some kind of a discount. I know I appreciate Senator Imoto. I'm sure you're working on some of those kind of things. And so that's what I would say. I don't disagree. Plastic bags are a disaster. How did we get here? It's because they were cheap. But the environmental impact is tremendous. And I think we do need to get rid of them. But motivating people positively rather than negatively impacting the retailing establishment would be a better way to go on this thing. So that's my 2 bits. Thank you very much.
Hello, Bill.
Hi, Dave. Good to see you. I'm Bill Strong, and I live at 629 Duck Creek Circle. I'm definitely opposed to this ordinance for a number of reasons. One, I hate any law that's always draconian in nature that wants to punish you. And I think, as already been mentioned, I think to deal with an issue like this, there ought to be a reward system rather than punishing people for using plastic bags. The other thing, too, when the presentations were made, the people that are passing these laws, like Park City and Moab, I don't subscribe to their politics, and I could care less what Park City or Moab's doing. In fact, I'd almost say if they're doing it, I'm not going to do it. Same with California and whatever the other state was. I choose not to live in California because I don't want a government that wants to control everything about what I do in life. And I don't want Utah to become that way, where we got to control everything, that everybody does. And if you don't do it our way, then we're going to fine you for it. So I hope that the council solidly votes against this ordinance. I think it's really bad news. And I'm one of the people, if you pass this ordinance, I guarantee you, I will shop elsewhere. I will not support Murray businesses if you pass this ordinance. That's it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kat Martinez. I live at 1165 Brandonwood. I'm a mother of three. I work for the health department, and I'm in favor of this ordinance. I apologize for reading, but I have lots of thoughts, and I want to get all of them in. Okay. The reason I support this is because, like all those reasons we heard, the bags are really difficult to recycle. They're hard on the machines. They're hard on animals, right, in the water. We're finding them on the parkway. I love walking on the parkway with my children, and we actually carry a bag with us to collect garbage as we go, and we're picking up just bags in those bags. Like, that's what we're picking up out there. And I'm really about changes in behavior, right? When we get new research about something and we learn something new, we should change our behaviors because of it, right? Remember the food pyramid when we thought we could just eat bread? Wasn't that cool? And then they did more research and they were like, don't just eat bread anymore. And we were like, okay. And now they have My Plate, right? And we had new research and we changed our behaviors. And so that's kind of where I'm at with this, is we have new research now and we really, we can find better alternatives. No one, like the gentleman mentioned, when you go to Costco, you're not like, where are the bags, right? They have other alternatives, and I believe that we are smart and we will have alternatives. So I think that that's important and very possible. Let's see. Sorry, I got ahead of my notes. I'm very excited to be here. All right. When we looked at the map in the different states, they're not just coastal places that are changing, right? They're counties all across the United States are putting these bans in place. And it's not that I want to be Moab and I don't want to be Park City. I want to be Murray. And I want us to set an example for Salt Lake County. I want us to show the rest of the county how we can do this, and that it's going to be a little hard for a minute. We're going to have some growing pains as a community, but 6 months after that, we won't even remember. We'll be like, oh yeah, we used to do that. But plastic bans have only been in constant use for like 60 years. This hasn't always been the way. So we can make changes. I believe in us. We can do hard things, and Murray can absolutely set the standard for stewardship when it comes to our environment. I believe in us. Go team. Okay, thank you.
Hey there, everybody. Jeff Evans, 5574 Walden Glen Drive in beautiful West Murray, Utah. I got to tell you that I am more proud of my town tonight that this conversation's going on. I personally, I think it's been about 8 months ago, discontinued the use of plastic bags going into the grocery store. I have my 2 good-sized totes go in there, and actually the Smiths on my side of on 53rd and 7th, they'll give me about 5 extra fuel points per bag for showing up and putting them out there. So that's pretty cool. As far as people going outside of Murray to shop because of us having this in place, I actually think it could create a reverse thing, that people will come here and shop because they feel good about shopping in Murray, and they are reducing their carbon footprint, and they are, feel good about themselves, and they want to be associated with a city that's forward thinking and moving ahead thinking of the environment and such. Long story short, I think that this is a forward thinking. I think it doesn't matter if every other community around us doesn't have this ordinance in place. I mean, we have television news from state outlets, news outlets from the entire state. There are communities all over the state that have their eyes on us tonight to see what we're going to do. Everybody's watching Murray tonight to see what we're going to do. So let's make them proud. And then finally, just for fun, I created a poll on this on Facebook, which got shared by the Murray Journal and also on the Murray Citizens. And as of right this moment, with 219 votes in, 63 say no bag ban, and 156 say ban the bag. So I'm no Dan Jones and Associates, but I can smell support when I see stuff like that. So anyway, again, proud to be a Murrayite tonight, and thanks for this conversation.
Hello, my name's Adam Thompson, and I live at Three Fountains community on the west side of Murray. I'm the vice president of their HOA board, and I represent a fairly older community. Like I said last time I was here, I'm probably the youngest owner by about 20 years. So I have their interest in heart as well. Show of hands. If I said we could reduce costs, reduce environmental impact, reduce carbon footprint, would everyone here be for that? Right? Everyone here would be for that. Okay. Well, then we shouldn't be for this ban. Because the reality is, we were told a lot of propaganda tonight. Carbon footprint is much higher with alternative uses bags. It simply is. The way landfills work, correct me if I'm wrong, nothing is meant to degrade in a landfill. Nothing. It's meant to be a self-contained system. So an alternative material is just going to increase oil production. It's going to increase waste management costs, and it has in every single city, in every single area that's been implemented. The fact is that single-use bags are 97% derived from a byproduct of ethane, or it's ethane, right? Polyethylene ethane. So if you ban the plastic bags, the alternative is the oil consumption bag. That's the alternative. It's not the reality of what they told you today, okay? It's not the reality. So if we can reduce costs, reduce environmental impact, then we should want these single-use plastic bags. Okay, and the last thing I'd like to talk about is what kind of city does Murray want to be? Do you want to be a city that reduces agency, reduces your capability as an individual to make your free choices? Is that what Murray wants to be? I don't think we do. Let's talk about litter real quick. Litter, according to in a 2013 study by Stephen Stein, who is the leading authority on this, visible litter from plastic bags is less than 1%, it was about 0.6%, and overall weight of litter was about 0.4%, give or take a percent. When you go to these alternative, litter increases. Weight increases, cost increase. The sign that the senator showed everyone is a visual representation that gets you emotionally charged. It does. I look at it and I agree. It's an emotional charge, but it's not true. It's not true. So if you want to be friendlier to your environment and lower your costs, you'd be against this bag. In addition, one of the things they did permit, I only got about 10 seconds left, is this does disproportionately affect lower income, large families, and it changes behavior, but not in a good way. There are other choices, and people will leave Murray. You want property taxes raised, you vote for a ban. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Bryant Larson, by the way, 5483 Waldenwood Circle. I have a few thoughts. First and foremost, anytime a state, and I'm going to say Murray City is a state in this case, enforces a fee, it's called a tax. So let's be clear. If you're going to force Smiths to collect something to provide a service, that's called a tax, not a fee. So you're taxing those grocery bags for me, not collecting a fee. Just want to make that point clear. I'm also offended at the use of the term single use. because not a single one of those bags that comes into my house after coming from the grocery store is bagged up and put in the recycle bin. They go in our pantry, where they are then used to collect dog poo. And I'm not putting dog poo in this. They are also lining our trash cans in our bathrooms. And every time I get a cast somewhere, I go for a grocery bag to put around it when I take a shower. They're not single use in my household. And then if they're still in good shape, I put them back in the pantry. They're not just being once from the grocery store, then to the trash can. If you get rid of them, I will have to buy similar size bags to put in my pantry to use for those uses in my home. I will not use fabric bags, and I'm not going to chuck the dog poo over the fence. Lastly, and this one goes to just that whole idea of like science and learning new things, and every time something comes up we should change real quick. Back in the 70s, the earth was cooling and it was an emergency. 15 years ago, the earth was warming and it was an emergency, and by now Florida should be under the ocean right now. I feel like that whole thing has just been pushed on us as a moral issue. Like we have to respond to this because it's the moral right thing to do. We have to stop using these bags because it's morally the right thing to do. And I'd like to just read a quick thing from C.S. Lewis. Of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It would be better to live under robber barons than under the omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep. His cupidity may at some point be satiated. But those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own consciousness. I just feel like this moral idea of, man, we're killing the environment with these bags. If we can't recycle them, compress them and throw them away like all the other trash we can't recycle. They are the most efficient that we can get to. We've made them so thin for a reason. It's so that we can put the most stuff in them, get them home them easy, and make them as inexpensive to create and make them the smallest that we can possibly make them. Thank you guys very much, and have a good evening.
Okay, we'll allow 2 more speakers, then we'll conclude our meeting.
My name is Jeff Glauser. I live at 1336 East, 5985 South. This is the first time I've ever made a public comment at a city council like this, and it's not because I'm for or against banning plastic bags per se. It's that I'm against more government regulation. I'm against more fees, more taxes. I don't see this as a legislation issue. Not everything needs to be handled by an institution or a governing body. In my mind, if people wanted to use reusable bags over plastic bags, they would. And it doesn't need to be something that we are forced into by a city council. I also found it interesting that the main presenters tonight were all for the ban, and the one presenter who was against the ban kind of had to worm his way up without a presentation. It seemed a little slanted to me. If we as citizens wanted more regulations or more government intervention in our lives, we'd move to California or Venezuela, for that matter. Senator Iwamoto specifically said fees change behavior. Like, at the end of the day, I don't think anybody wants a higher cost of living. Everybody wants to either maintain or decrease their cost of living. So you said we could ask questions. My question is, has the council already kind of decided that they want to push this forward? Are there people for and against on the council, or?
This is the first time we've discussed it. We haven't discussed it yet.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate that feedback. Those were my biggest points. That at the end of the day, just let the citizens choose. If they want to use a reusable bag, they can. If they like to use a plastic bag, they can. Don't make everything a black or a white, a government intervention. We don't need more regulations, fees, or taxes. Thanks.
And I do want to comment on one point the speaker made. We did not select these presenters based on for or against. They were selected based on their use of plastic bags relative to waste disposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Marie Christman, 6084 South, 1480 East, Murray. I just want to quickly say thank you to the council for looking at this issue. I know they're always difficult, but one of the things I love about Murray and our elected officials is you're not afraid to look at the hard stuff and ask the hard questions. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the educational information from all sides. So it was very, very helpful. I just want to say that I've lived in a couple of cities on the Wasatch Front, including Murray twice, and I've come back to Murray and will stay in Murray. And one of the big reasons is that Murray really cares about its citizens and the quality of life. And so taking up this issue is not a surprise because I think that's what Murray does. I just want to say I'm in favor of the proposal. I feel strongly that you will continue to look at the pro and con and give it a good look and listen to the input and come up with great ideas. But in the end, I hope to see that you will support the proposal. I'm sure it'll be tweaked, but it's something that I feel sometimes you just have to start with a grassroots level. I appreciate that the state has looked at things, but it didn't happen. And this isn't a brand new issue, and sometimes you just got to step forward, take the lead, which Murray often does, and others will come along. I think everyone agrees it's an issue. I don't know what the answers are, but sometimes you just got to push and go from there and continue to tweak and work things out. So I shop in Fort Union, I shop in Murray, I shop at stores that do not offer plastic bags. I have my reusable bag. I don't always remember to bring them in, and because behavior is hard to change, but it's something that I think we have to strive to continue to do because it is an issue and it is a great cost. And with everything, as you start to move, there are issues, but I also feel strongly that we can figure them out as citizens and elected officials and come up with the right answer. So thank you for the time, and thank you for looking at this.
Thank you. That'll bring us to the conclusion. The conclusion of our meeting. We want to thank you for your participation and comments. We really appreciate the constituent involvement that we've seen here tonight. Thank you. Give yourselves a hand.